All right. Hello, Fortinos, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to Ministry Revealed. It is April 8th, 2025. And today we got a good one. We got a fun one. It's new. It probably won't take as long. I don't suspect it'll take as long as our usual teachings, but I'm kind of saying that without knowing. You guys will already know, of course. But we're going to have some fun here today. We had um, something shared in the forum. Oh man, probably for 4 or 5 years, it gets shared in the forum once in a while. Uh, for anybody that's new, when you hear me talk about the forum, if you would like to hang out and be with like-minded brothers and sisters who are digging, seeking, and searching diligently into prophecy to understand it and grow closer, you can come to ministryrevealed.com, go to the menu box, and click on forum. I think there's something like 1,400 people worldwide, like-minded brothers and sisters digging into prophecy, sharing news and events and Bible studies and all sorts of things, prayer requests, all sorts of stuff going on in there. But from the menu box, just click on forum. It takes about 5-10 seconds to sign up, and it's free. All right, so you can comment in there if you'd like, or not comment if you don't want to, and just watch some of the posts that go in. You're free to do that as well. All right. But this topic here tonight had been shared for probably 4.5 to 5 years now, and it's been brought up on occasion. I've heard about it before over the years, and it was our one of our sisters, Jane, a while back, who was shows a lot of connections with the physical body and what Scripture reveals in all of these typologies. It was pretty awesome. And our brother Herman recently posted about it, and somebody had shared a video about this as well, but not through our prophetic end time eyes. And so we've been working on the chart. Remember the dual calendar chart, the Nissan to Nissan, and the sowing and reaping chart. And I was working on that today with Tammy. We're not quite ready yet, and I wasn't quite ready to want to share, even though the parts that I was ready with were ready. I wanted to do some more digging and add more things before we present it. So that will most likely, God willing, be the next teaching. But last night, of course, you guys know my whole shower thing. And every night when I'm in my prayers, one of the things I ask for at the beginning is just for the Lord to lead me. What's your will? What would you have me to understand? Where do you want me to go in and seek? Now, remember, this was just last night. And so by last night, I started studying into it a little bit more. And by this afternoon, I was pretty much ready to go. And then late this afternoon, I was ready to go. And what it is many of you guys will probably have heard about the 66 books of Isaiah, that are the 66 chapters, sorry, that the 66 chapters of Isaiah have a typology in them as the 66 books of the Bible. And recently, like I said, the guy that wrote a book about this, the video about him talking about it was posted, or somebody had shared it with me. And I've looked at it over the years, but I've just briefly looked at it over the years. I kind of went in a little bit, and I was like, and I just kind of let it aside. Like it just, not because I didn't think it was time. It just, I guess, the Lord was just saying, no, not yet. I wasn't feeling this drive to go into it further because it just wasn't clicking as I was reading it. And so I had set it aside. But this had come up on numerous occasions over the years. And so while asking the Lord about what he'd want, what came to my mind instantly, I don't have audibles, I don't have visions, I don't have dreams. I have the Spirit leading through the revelation of understanding to reveal the prophecies for the end of days. It's wild. And if you're new, I'll give you some insight in a little bit. But what came to my thoughts was Isaiah 42. So I'm asking for it, and then instantly what comes to mind is Isaiah 42. And I don't always get something, obviously. But this time I did. And so when I was done, I went back downstairs and I started looking through it more intently this time. And lo and behold, now was the time. And we were able to bring, I'm going to be able to bring this all about here tonight. Now, what is it that I'm going to be bringing about? Well, we're going to go into the book of Isaiah as the 66 chapters relate to the 66 books. And of course, when people who have done these studies, and this guy who has a book written about it and gives some examples as he goes through his teaching on it, they're looking through the lens of the is. How each chapter of the Bible has things in it, in the chapters of Isaiah to the books of the Bible, and he will go and pick out those things throughout it, kind of like what we've done with the chapters to years, right? The Psalms, the Hosea and Zechariah and all those other books. But it's always looked through the eyes of the is, like just literally what it talked about, when that was written, and how it relates to words that are given in each of those chapters. And the chapters are 40, 41, and 42 that relate to Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Well, here in this ministry, we know that the first will be last, the last will be first, and it's going to go in reverse order, starting with Luke, then Mark, and then Matthew. And for anybody that's new, I'll show you what I'm talking about in a moment. But, there's a lot of people that criticize and come against this idea of the 66 chapters having a relation to the 66 books. And the reason they do it, is because they say, oh, the chapters were divided and the verses were added after the books had been written. It was just man who did it. People don't realize, the vast, vast, vast majority of people out there don't realize that the numbering of the chapters and the numbering of the verses and how the chapters are even laid out on a page were Holy Spirit led and inspired. We have proven that here in this ministry for years now. For over 7 years, we've been proving that the way the Bible is laid out, the way the chapters were chosen, the way the verses were laid out, why the verses are laid out in specific ways, and how they're laid out on a page compared to one of the other Gospels, we can prove and have hundreds of times that it is Spirit-filled. There's no doubt about it. And so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to go through this in what we call our end time eyes. Okay? So using our end time eyes, we're going to look at it differently than everybody else because we have the revelation of the differences in the Gospels and who they're speaking to. So if anybody's new to the ministry, this is where you come for it. You can go to ministryrevealed.com, go to the menu and click intro and watch the first 4 teachings there, or you can come to the YouTube channel right here, click on playlist, and come to this link right here, Intro to the End Times, and that will take you to this page right here. This is the first teaching right here. It's a 22-minute intro to give you little tidbits of what's coming in the next 3. This one right here, who the Gospels are speaking to, is this 30-minute intro to reveal to you that the differences in the synoptic Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke reveal in the end will be played out as Luke, Mark, Matthew, as I had just mentioned. And you're going to see that all of these differences in Scripture, like, for example, Jesus going to the cross in Luke, he was arrayed in a gorgeous robe, which means white, radiant, beautiful. In Mark, he's arrayed in purple, and in Matthew, he's arrayed in scarlet. Well, why does it tell us this? Why are these 3 different colors mentioned? Well, the bride is white, radiant, beautiful, gorgeous robe, correct? Yet when you go to Revelation 17 and you see the woman riding the beast, you see that she's arrayed in purple and scarlet. And that starts to give you insight. That alone starts to give you insight to Luke, Mark, and Matthew. And these are the types of things that you're going to see, that these differences within the discourses, these differences within the Gospels of Luke, Mark, Matthew, even the way chapters are laid out, as I had mentioned, reveal understanding and timing of prophecy for the end of days. And in this teaching, it's just a 30-minute study that you can follow along with a printout if you want. It's in the description box below the video. It'll blow your mind. And all you got to do is spend 30 minutes. The next one is another 30-minute Bible study. And this one is an intro to what the differences in the Gospels reveals to the timing of years. And that difference is that the tribulation is not 7 years long, but 14 years in a small period of time called above. It's the Luke is the above, Mark is 7 years of seals, and Matthew's is 7 years of trumpets. That's the way the discourses play out. And that's what you're going to begin to understand, where it's spoken about in so many places in Scripture. And this just starts to touch on it in this 30-minute Bible study on it. Okay, so they go hand in hand. This was the first thing that was revealed to me about 7.5 years ago, September 8th of 2017. This is where it all began. And then within a month, this revealed itself and started to open up. And so once you start to realize this, then the question is going to be, how on earth did we miss it? And the answer is simple. One, it wasn't yet the time to be made known. And two, it's all because of Matthew. We have all been taught from the Gospel of Matthew for centuries. And because our foundation, unbeknownst to us, is been focused on the Gospel of Matthew, like Mark and Luke are just extra ones to go reference once in a while. When the reality is, there's 3 of them on purpose. And the reason for the differences in the Gospels is prophecy, and it reveals the timing, and it shows you that the reason people believe in a 7-year tribulation is because they all have their foundation in Matthew's Gospel, and specifically Matthew 24, that they missed the rest of the story from Mark and from Luke. And what you realize is that pre, mid, and post are all true over the portion called above and 14 years. The above starts with the pre-trib. Then there's several days. Then there's the 7 years of seals. And in that 7th year of seals is the mid-trib great multitude rapture. And then in the 14th year is when the Lord returns feet down on the Mount of Olives. And that final 14th year is him dealing with the days of Noah that would be 1 year and 10 days long. It's absolutely awesome. And it's only 22 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes to really start to ignite it for you. And then you watch this bigger one of 2 hours and 43 minutes, and it really opens it up, and you'll begin to see it and understand it for yourself. All right? So, having said that, let's get this started. Let's go to, where was my starting point? Right here. All right, so we had already chatted on this. This is the story of what we're going in tonight. We're going to go into the book of Isaiah, and from the book of Isaiah, we're going to look at 3 specific chapters. Let's go to Isaiah. You see, with the 66 chapters, because there's 66 books in the Bible. In the past, when I had looked at this over the years, I had considered that maybe what was going on is that there was 22 chapters, and then another 22 chapters, and then another 22 chapters. You see, when people realize that the Bible is infinite, you will never learn it all if you were there from beginning of creation, reading it and studying it, and you had the whole thing right to the end. You would still never have all the answers. Okay? You would still never fully understand everything forever. And I don't claim that we do either. But we have been given a blessing in the understanding through the Spirit to open up the books of the end of days as it has never, ever been done before. And it is proven by the 670 videos that we have, the book that we've written that you can get on the website for free, or listen to it for free on in English on the website, download it for free in 5 different languages, or if you wanted to, you can always go to Amazon if you wanted an actual physical copy. Okay? The evidence is there. So when I looked at this in the past as 22, 22, 22, you know, sometimes you see some things and other times it falls apart. And when I had seen 40, 41, and 42 in the past, it just wasn't time for me to look at it. And you're going to see something. You're going to notice something that I didn't realize till later this afternoon as I was going through it. When we get to the one that relates to the Gospel of Matthew, you see, because of what we know in the above, in the seals, and in the trumpets, we know it's the pre-trib bride of Christ, it's the mid-trib of the great multitude rapture of the church, and then the Lord returning feet down on the Mount of Olives. We know that the first group is going to the third heaven. There's the 7-day wedding, and then the Son of Man is coming. He is going to be here for 40 days in that period of time called the above, which is 50 days long. It starts with the pre-trib. There's a 7-day wedding, and the Son of Man is coming for 40 days. He's coming to warn. He's coming to tell the people, okay, of what's coming, to be prepared. He's warning Jerusalem, like you read in Luke 21's discourse. And then you've got the seals events. And then at the end of the 6th year of seals, the Lord's coming, but he's not coming feet down on the Mount of Olives. He's coming with heavenly Mount Zion. He's coming with paradise, the place prepared, the place that he went to prepare, and said that when he goes there to prepare this place, he will come again and receive them unto himself, that where he is, there they may be also. Hello. That's not the pre-trib. That's the mid-trib great multitude. He's going to prepare a place for them in paradise and receive them to himself, that where he is, there they may be also. That is the mid-trib great multitude rapture. And then, of course, the one everybody knows is when he returns feet down on the Mount of Olives as lightning from one end unto the other. Okay? That's when he's all powerful, when it's just game over, and he destroys all the enemies in that final year, and then the Jubilee is set up. We'll touch a little bit on the new calendar with some scribbles I got on it at the very end to show you a very interesting thing that I caught in relation to one of our Chapters to Years books that will tie this up together at the end. But you see, the only way you can really understand this in relation to how these books play out, or these chapters play out in the books, is like that guy did in the is, and looking at the events that took place. But when it comes to the is to come, if you don't understand the above and the three comings of Christ, you will have no clue as to how to be able to understand these in relation of into the is to come and looking through these prophetic eyes. Okay? Everything is was, is, and is to come. Everything is always in threes. Was is from creation to Christ. Is from Christ until the pre-trib. And then is to come is from the pre-trib to the end. Everything is in threes. Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Satan, Lucifer, right? The Satan, false prophet, Satan, the beast, who is as Lucifer, and the false prophet. It's always in threes. 777. Okay? That's the whole story. And then the final new beginning is the 22nd year. That's why I was looking in the past at 22, 22, 22. Okay? It's wild. There's so many connections. But what you're going to see, as I was mentioning earlier, is we're going to start in 42, then we're going to go to 41, and then we're going to go to 40. Because the end of days plays out as Luke, then Mark, then Matthew. And Luke is the 42nd book of the Bible. Mark is the 41st, and Matthew is the 40th. Okay? So what I'm going to show you doesn't negate what people have seen and can show from what's written in the scriptures in relation to just everyday life and understanding the scriptures. And it doesn't negate other things that we have found within the Gospels, within the chapters of Isaiah, and what they speak about into prophecy. This goes back to what I was saying, is you could have spent the last almost 20,000 years, for those who understand, almost 20,000 years, you could have been spending all that time studying it and never have all the answers. Okay? So this is just another layer into the details of this in looking at it in the prophetic. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by going to Isaiah 42, and you could probably see it right off the bat, right? Those of you who have been around for a bit, you're like, whoa, did that just say what I think it said? Yep. And it gets very detailed. So many, like when we go to the chapters to years, right? So just like when we go to our chart of the chapters to years, if you take the 21 chapters of John, which we've taught on many, many, many times, and we go to chapter 14, and we know that it was these 777 of the 21 years, is like the 7 Easy of Leah before he served 7 more years and 6 more years and then made a covenant with his father-in-law, okay, after 20 years. Well, what this story is the end of the 7, the 49 years, okay? But what you're also going to notice, for those who have been around for a little bit, this is a little bit more detailed than for new people, but this right here, remember, this chart in relation to these books that have opened with their chapters to years, some might be in relation to a Nisan to Nisan count, whereas others may be playing out as a Tishri to Tishri year count. And I'm going to touch a little bit on this at the end, but go into it more when we get into the next teaching with the calendar and where these things have pointed to. But in relation to the Gospel of John, in the chapters to years of John, which some people have heard about the chapters to years of Psalms, right? And people had gotten it all the way up to, I think it was 1999, so they believed they could only track it up to 99, and then they weren't sure how it worked. Well, we've been able to show that 18 through 33 and 118 through 133 lays out this prophetic picture with pieces of details within the book. But what happens is within the book, you don't get all of the details. Sometimes a whole chapter might actually be riddled with prophetic things relating to the is to come. In other cases, it might be something just at the beginning that plays out in the first chapter to the year. Sometimes you might find in that chapter it's something that plays out around the middle of that year. Other times it might be something that plays out towards the end of that year. Okay? And when we get to the Gospel of John, you see that in chapters to years, here's the 7th year of seals, and the great multitude happens in the 7th year of seals, and it's the 14th chapter of John, which is exactly what I was just talking about, where it's showing you Jesus saying, I go to my Father's house to prepare a place for you, that when I return, I receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also. It's literally being talked about in the chapters to years to the year of when the Lord will return with the place prepared, which is when he's coming with paradise, with Mount Zion. It's wild, okay? And in today's teaching, this is more of what it relates to, okay? It relates to this, to the mystery that started this entire ministry on September 8th, where it all really began in relation to the differences in the Gospels and what they revealed in their differences. This is what we're going to see laid out in this story of going from Isaiah 42, then 41, and then 40. And what was wild was in Isaiah, when we get to chapter 40, this is where, and again, I had mentioned this a couple times and hadn't gotten to it yet, where I was stumped until this afternoon was I was scratching my head with some of the things that are spoken about in chapter 40, because I thought that chapter 40, I mean, if Luke is the pre-trib and the Son of Man at pre-trib, and then you've got Mark, which relates to the mid-trib and him coming with heavenly Mount Zion as high priest and king, seated at the right hand of the Father, when he's coming with paradise, when he comes as Messiah ben Joseph / Ephraim, right, which we've taught on numerous times, then when I went to go look at Isaiah 40 for Matthew's Gospel, I had assumed, because of our understanding of the differences in the Gospels, that what we should be seeing is stuff related to when he returns feet down on the Mount of Olives. And so I was left scratching my head. And then I read it more closely again. And I read it more closely again. And bam, it opened up. And now it totally makes sense. Okay? You'll see what I'm talking about when we get there. Because at the beginning of chapter 40, you're going to say, that's not Mark. I mean, that's not end of trumpets time. That has nothing to do with that. Okay? You'll see what I'm getting at. So it's very, very interesting. And it's a lot of fun. So watch this. In Isaiah 42, now remember, this relates to the Gospel of Luke, which means it relates to the pre-trib time, and then the coming of the Son of Man for 40 days. Okay? We know this. And if 42, the 42nd chapter, the 42nd book is the Gospel of Luke. Okay? So Luke's discourse, then Mark's discourse, and then we'll get more detailed when it comes to the Matthew one. So look at how it starts. Remember, for those of you who have been around for a bit, remember what we know about Luke and his discourse. Okay? The Son of Man is coming for 40 days in the midst of those 50 days. So watch this. Isaiah 42 verse 1. Behold my servant, whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth. I have put my spirit upon him. He shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. So there's this connection right off the bat to the Gentiles, because what do we know about seals? Until the great multitude rapture, we are still in the Gentile age until the end of seals. You see, we can even go to, let's go to it real quick. Let's go to Luke chapter 21 and look at his discourse. We'll see what he says about this time that takes place. Distress and wrath upon the people in Luke 21:24. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. This is the beginning of the 14 years. Okay? This is when Jerusalem gets attacked at the beginning of the 14 years, and then it goes to that 7th year of seals till the end of the 6th year. The Lord's coming. It'll be the end of the age of the Gentiles. Okay? So right off the bat, we've already understood this. You're going to even see understandings of this. Okay? That we know the Jews in Israel being led away captive into all nations, and at the end of seals, the Lord bringing them back. Okay? It's all detailed in these, but it's impossible if you don't understand the differences in the discourses to be able to pull it out. 42, sorry. So, again, behold my servant, time of the Gentiles. Now watch this. Who is this servant? Well, if we go to Philippians chapter 2, we get our first insight into it in verse 6. Whom being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant. Okay? So who is this servant that's being spoken about here? Who is this servant in whom the Lord delights in, and his spirit is upon him to bring forth this judgment of the Gentiles? Well, why? Because the judgment of the Gentiles is going to take place during seals. Right? It's the time of the house of Israel. Jerusalem is going to be destroyed. They're going to be scattered. And then it's going to be World War III breakout after that. And it's going to be judgment on the world, which is the house of Israel and the Gentiles that are grafted in until the end of seals. So that part, okay, that already makes sense. He shall not cry, nor lift up, nor cause his voice to be heard in the streets. A bruised reed he shall not break, and the smoking flax he shall not quench. He shall bring forth judgment to truth. He shall not fail, nor be discouraged, till he have set judgment in the earth, and the isles shall wait for his law. Again, this is probably something else we can go look into Luke chapter 12. Watch this. Remember, the Lord is now going to be bringing judgment. This is judgment and condemnation upon the earth that's coming. We know this from many of our studies in Luke chapter 12, and we see the 3 watches from Luke, Mark, and Matthew. And then what does he say? Further down right here. In verse 49, this is connected to the Lord here for 40 days and the things he's going to be doing and preparing. I am come to send fire on the earth. And what will I if it be already kindled? Okay? He's coming to bring division. He's not coming to bring peace. Nay, rather division. Okay? From henceforth, people are going to be divided against each other, and mother and son, daughter and father. But not only that, they're going to be divided, people against people. This is what he's bringing when he comes for 40 days. And you're going to see when that's restored as well. It's awesome how it's all in these. So we know that the servant is Christ with the Spirit upon him. We know he's coming to bring judgment to the time of the Gentiles. Okay? Now watch this. Verse 6. I, the Lord, have called thee in righteousness. I will hold thine hand. I will keep thee and give thee for a covenant of a people for, oh, look at that. Dead giveaway, isn't it? All you had to do was read that, and that was the giveaway. For a light of the Gentiles. Well, that rings good for us too, doesn't it? How about Luke chapter 2? We know the Luke in order. We know it's the pre-trib 7-day wedding, then the 8th day, which is when the 40 days of the Son of Man begins. And this is a picture prophetically of his birth, equaling when he comes to start his 40 days. And he's coming to what? Shine his light in the darkness. And what is it? To be a light unto the Gentiles. Funny how that works, right? This is one that could easily be applied to just simply what the chapter says in relation to the Gospel of Luke. Okay? So that alone could be in that guy's book as well. I don't know. I haven't read it. But in the prophetic, we know what this is about. And this is the Son of Man here for 40 days, shining his light on the Gentiles, of which we know there's the lambs, as you recall. And I'm bringing this up for a reason. You're going to want to remember this one. Remember in Luke 21, feed my lambs, feed my sheep, feed my sheep. Well, the lambs are everybody pre-trib. Just as Christ was the lamb, everybody who is in Christ spirit-filled are sons and daughters of God. They go pre-trib. But from among them, there's a group of lambs who are remaining, who are going to be like Christ in that sense, like a small like, right? Like little rocks as he's the rock. He is the lamb. We're little lambs, okay? We've talked about it many times. And so in this timing of all of this is the exact same time while he's here, he has this group of them that are following him that had been chosen that we just briefly pointed again to Luke chapter 12, as we've talked on many times. Verse 7. Oh, actually, you know what? Let's go back a little bit. Check this out. Matthew chapter 12. Okay? Matthew chapter 12. So remember what we were saying right here, that I have set my spirit upon him, and he was going to bring judgment, bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. Well, this is connected to Matthew 12. Well, why is it in Matthew? Well, listen to what it says. But when Jesus knew it, he withdrew himself from thence, and great multitudes followed him, and he healed them. Now, why would it say great multitudes? Because this is a picture being told to them of what the Lord was doing first unto the Gentiles, and the great multitude is the group that's there during the time of seals, right? They're going to be part of the great multitude rapture. And great multitudes followed him, and he healed them all, and charged them that they should not make him known, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by Isaiah the prophet, saying, Behold my servant, whom I have chosen, my beloved, in whom my soul is well pleased. I will put my spirit upon him, and he shall show judgment to the Gentiles. You see? This is that same conversation. So to understand if this is talking about Jesus, well, now you know for certain we've got it right there referenced in Isaiah as being the Lord, being the Son of Man. And of course, we've got the connection we saw in Ephesians 2 as well. Then, of course, being the light for the Gentiles is for us that dead giveaway. Verse 7 of Isaiah 42. To open the blind eyes and to bring out the prisoners from the prison, and them that sat in darkness out of the prison house. Or remember what he comes to do? He comes to what? Shine his light in the darkness. We saw this everywhere. Remember, we did a study not long ago showing this same thing being spoken about over and over and over and over, connected to the Lord coming to begin his 40 days. Let's keep going. Verse 9. Behold, the former things are come to pass, and new things do I declare. Before they spring forth, I tell you of them. He's coming at the beginning. And what do we know he's coming at the beginning to do? He's coming to warn Jerusalem, but he's not only going to warn Jerusalem. We don't know where he's going throughout the 40 days. We know it'll definitely be around Jerusalem, but not only. We know that there will be many people following him, but not everybody believing who he is, where the rest of the world will completely denounce who they think he is. Many will call him the Antichrist, because the church has been told that the Antichrist comes first. Okay? We know it's the Son of Man. And those who are here, who were chosen to remain like the Luke 12, right? That first watch group, that remnant of the bride chosen to serve during seals and follow him during 40 days, they're going to understand these things. And why is it new things do I declare? Because that first age, that time is over. So there's the was, the is, and the is to come. So he's coming to declare these things that are beginning now in this new thing, which is the portion of the is to come that has just begun. Okay? And to tell them before they spring forth. So the pre-trib happens, some little bit of events happen in those 7 days, and then he comes to start his 40 days. Well, who is he going to be telling these things before they spring forth? Of course, he's going to be telling them to that first remnant group. If we go to Luke 24, that group chosen from among the bride just before the pre-trib happened, chosen to remain and to be prepared, what do we know about them? He told them these things, right? We've seen it many times. Let's go to it real quick. In Luke 24, 44, and 45. That all things must be fulfilled which are written in the law of Moses and in the prophets and in the Psalms concerning me. Then opened he their understanding, that they might understand the scriptures. This is only found in Luke's gospel. Okay? This, if you're new, this is one of those things that there's a reason why this is only found in Luke. So we're getting this idea of who he's speaking to, but also that he's also telling them what's coming as the Son of Man, here to warn, as he said he would, as Jonah did for 40 days. Okay? Let's keep going. Isaiah 42, verse 13. The Lord shall go forth as a mighty man. Check this out. The Lord shall go forth as a mighty, powerful warrior, champion, okay? But he's going to go out as a mighty man. Wait a second. Does that sound familiar to some of you guys? Well, it should. Psalms 19. Wait a second. Let's go have a look at Psalms 19. Psalms 19 is the timing of the coming of the Son of Man for 40 days. He is the timing of the coming of the Son of Man for 40 days. And what do we know about him? Listen what it says. Which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber and rejoicing as a strong man to run a race. Let's go to Psalms 19 so you guys can see it for yourselves, and let's see if it's the same word, 1368. Psalms 19:5, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, rejoicing as a strong man, there it is, 1368, ready to run a race. Now, did we know all these things in Isaiah already? No, we've studied Isaiah through different eyes in different perspectives, but never in relation to understanding it with Luke and it being connected to the Son of Man here for 40 days, yet here it is coinciding with a chapter related to what we've been teaching is when the Son of Man is coming for 40 days. Him shining his light as a Gentile upon the Gentiles when he comes to shine it in the darkness is directly related to a chapter in the Luke in order of 1, 2, 3, 4, which we've been teaching for years, is connected prophetically to the 40 days of the coming of the Son of Man. You see how that works? And of course, we know it's the Son of Man based on what the other scriptures have told us. Well, let's keep going. Let's go back to Isaiah 42. It's another one of those things where the books are opening, guys, in the prophetic, okay? Yes, like I said, yes, you can say they opened them in the way they've looked in the is of the words being written, but in the prophetic that's opening as well. In the same prophetic revelation that we've understood. So there is as a mighty man, and he shall stir up what? Jealousy. That means when he's here for 40 days, there's a jealousy, or even you could say the Father is jealous in heaven, but the Son, when he's here for 40 days, is playing out that jealousy. Well, guess what? Do we know of something like that happens in the above period of time? How about Zechariah chapter 1? We go to Zechariah chapter 1, and what do we see? The Lord who is jealous for Jerusalem, right? In Zechariah chapter 1, verse 15. And what do we know it said in verse 12? It said these 70 years. So there's still, it's before the 70 years has ended. Just before the 70 years has ended, we saw, where is it, a little bit further up? It told us it was the 24th day of the 11th month. And as we keep going, the attack hasn't happened yet, so we're still in the 70th year before Jerusalem is attacked, which we believe started this Nisan 1, which means the attack on Jerusalem is expected by about Nisan 1 of next year, which means 50 days before that is our believed time of escape, right in that window of about that 8th to the 15th of the 11th month on the Hebrew calendar. But listen to what it says. In verse Zechariah chapter 1, verse 14, again, and 15, this is connected to the 40 days of the Son of Man. And what does he say? I am jealous for Jerusalem and for Zion with a great jealousy. There it is, 70:68. This is within that 40-day, in that window of the above. I am very sore displeased with the heathen that are at ease, for I was a little displeased, and they helped forward the affliction. Bam. Another one. All of these things just so happen to be related to us in Isaiah chapter 42, corresponding to Luke's gospel, relating to the 40 days of the coming of the Son of Man. It's awesome. It's so awesome. And you're going to see, as you read and go study these things out for yourself, you're going to see that in this one, which is to Luke, remember Luke has no condemnation. We'll see that as we go forward. But if we go to Luke's gospel, and we go to Luke chapter 22, I always mix up this one, whether it's 20 or 22. But watch what happens. No, I was right. It was 20. Luke chapter 20. The woman who was married 7 times, remember that? So in the resurrection, who's going to be her husband when she's there in the resurrection? And he says, but they which shall be accounted worthy. This is the pre-trib group going pre-trib to the third heaven. To those that, but they that shall be accounted worthy to escape, to obtain that world, comma, and this is the other group that's remaining to serve the Lord, the resurrection of the dead, neither marry nor are given in marriage. Now listen to this. Neither can they die anymore, for they are equal unto the angels. You see, there's no condemnation. We've talked about this a number of times. Mike from 165 had talked about this a number of times as well. You never find condemnation in Luke's gospel. Excuse me. You never find the word tribulation or the definition of the word that can mean affliction and so forth. It's not even found in the Gospel of Luke. Are there things that are going to happen that's the beginning of tribulation? Yes, but the official tribulation, you could say it starts at the pre-trib, but the affliction of tribulation doesn't begin until nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom at the Red Horse Rider, which is where Mark's discourse starts, okay? Which is the beginning of the 14 years from that point. But there's no condemnation. But we'll touch on it later. you'll see, as we know, that in Mark's and in Matthew's, there's this condemnation of erring and not having understood. Like, you didn't know from the beginning. What's wrong with you? You see, you don't see anything in here, as you're going to see in the other two, about this description of the beginning. What? You didn't know from the beginning? You couldn't understand these things? Nobody told you from the beginning? Nobody was listening. That's why. You don't see any of that in the one in anywhere in Luke, or the one that relates to Luke, which is Isaiah 42. Because this is the beginning. Okay? This is that beginning of it. And what is he doing? He's warning. Right? We just saw that he was warning. He's going to be telling them these things that are about to take place. This new time that has begun, which is the is to come. What else do we get? We see right here in Isaiah 42:14, I have long time holden my peace. Okay? This is something that people in prophecy talk about all the time, not specifically from this chapter and verse, but don't we cry out all the time, Lord, how long? Lord, let it be. If it means we have to serve you and we remain, we will do it. We will diligently serve you. But just to know that it has begun and we've understood these things, we will serve you no matter the cost, because it's for you. Right? Like, how long, Lord? Right? And what is he saying? I have long time held my peace. When he releases his peace, what is it? Judgment to the Gentiles, right? Judgment on the earth. This is what he's saying. And then look at what it says. I have been still and refrained myself. Could you imagine the restraint and the compassion that the Lord has on those who are still lost, that he knows have to come in before everything can begin? We know it's a set time. It's all throughout Scripture. We know the time has been set from the very beginning of creation. We know it because we understand the years, right? The overall picture of years, which means it was set. But the other piece of this picture is imagining the refrain that he has. To not have just done like he was saying with Moses back then and just let me destroy it. I'm going to start all over. When you look at the disgust and the stuff going on in the world over all these centuries and millenniums, it's insanity. You just think, Lord, how can you? Mercy, right? Mercy. That's what it is, guys. But there'll be a point where he has held his peace long enough. And that point is very near in the understanding. And now listen to what he says. Now will I cry like a travailing woman. Wait a second. Now he's going to cry like a travailing woman. Doesn't that sound familiar to you as well? It sure does. Where is it? Where is it? Revelation chapter 12. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, moon, and stars, crowned with 12 stars. And what do we know about verse 2? And she, being with child, cried, travailing. What is this story? We know it very well. The pre-trib happens before the travailing. The travailing is the 40 days of the Son of Man, and the pained is the beginning of the 14 years at the attack on Jerusalem, and it represents, just in that word pained, in the definition of it, it is a representation of the first about 2.5 years of tribulation during World War III that begins with the attack on Jerusalem, its destruction, and then Russia and everybody else, and it all breaks out. Okay? How have we proven this? This was where everything began on September 8th, 2017, with this right here in Revelation 12, in Luke 21, and in Isaiah 66. We see it right here. Before she travailed, in verse 7, Isaiah 66, before she travailed, she brought forth. Okay? So what does that mean? Before this crying and travail, she brought forth. So before the travail, that's your pre-trib, brothers and sisters. And then it says, before her pain came, she was delivered of a man-child. So before the travailing, right here, before the travailing, the pre-trib happens. The travailing is the 40 days of the Son of Man, because it's before it says pain to be delivered. Okay? Which you see right here. Before travailing brought forth, that's the pre-trib. But before her pain, she was delivered of a man-child. So what's the pain? What comes before the pain? The travailing. And this travailing represents the time of the Son of Man here for 40 days. And what did we get? Him saying that he's going to cry like a travailing woman. I will destroy and devour at once. It's everywhere, guys. Okay? Let's read verse 16. I will bring the blind by the way, and they that knew not, I will lead them in paths that they have not known. I will make darkness light. I will make darkness light before them, and crooked things straight. These things will I do unto them, and not forsake them. Not forsake who? The Gentiles who have turned to him, right? The Gentiles in house of Israel. So what is he doing? He's going to make these ways straight for them. This remnant group is going to be leading them as well, a portion of them. And what is it going to be a time of? Well, then you're going to have this time of graven images, right? Molten images. The beast is going to be coming. So this warning of this understanding is coming during seals. Remember this in Luke 24 again? We know this piece of revelation as well. That's connected to this group, this first watch group, that the Lord is going to sit with and have a meal when he returns from the wedding, have that banquet meal with them. He opens up, as you guys know, their understanding. And if you remember, this word for understanding, it means overall understanding. See, divine or human. He's going to open up the divine understanding, which is the Greek word 3563. Part of the understanding that's going to be given is about this molten images, right? The graven images, which has to do with what? The mark of the beast, right? What does it say in Revelation 13 verse 18? Here is wisdom, let him that has understanding count the number of the beast. So what do you think this remnant group is going to be given in their understanding of the scriptures, which is this divine intellect that they're going to be given? They have to be given it. You realize that, right? It's going to be more powerful understanding than any of the prophets and any of these guys had in history before. It has to be, because it's going to be a time worse than at any point in history. Well, here was that word, which, by the way, is only used in Luke 24, and in Luke 24 in relation to the three different worker groups from Luke, Mark, Matthew at the end of each chapter, and it's used in Revelation 13 about understanding what? The beast, the number of his name, and who this beast will be. So again, we're seeing another connection of this group having this understanding that to keep those against that trust in these graven images and molten images, which is again talking about the beast. Isaiah 42 verse 21, the Lord is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. He will magnify the law and make it honorable. But this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. Excuse me. They are for a prey, and none delivers them, for a spoil, and none saith restore. Who are all these ones that are being robbed and spoiled? He's telling them about what's coming. Remember, he said he was going to make known to them. He was going to make known to them these things that were coming forth. Which is why I said before, and we're going to see as we go to the next two, why this group here, or why we're not reading in here about what? Were you not listening? Did you not know from the beginning? This is the beginning. This is the relation to the beginning, and he's the one coming to make known the understanding and make it known more specifically and spiritually to this remnant group. But it's all for who? For this group of Gentiles who are left to go through the seals, the sleepy church, the church that is not ready. They are the church, and theirs is the mid-trib great multitude. But that doesn't happen till the 7th year of seals. Whereas the whole world thinks it, most of the world of prophecy thinks the pre-trib is the great multitude of everybody that claims Jesus' name is going pre-trib, and then you've got your 7 years. So they're really at the end of the seals in the 7th year, and they're only seeing the 7 years of trumpets. This is helping to clarify that even more. And so who are these people? Well, we know they're the Gentiles. We know it's the Son of Man coming to bring about and make known the tribulation that's coming here upon the Gentiles. Well, what is he going to do for them at the end? Those that come to him, those that end up trusting in him, those who are robbed and spoiled and all these things. What do you think he does? He delivers them, doesn't he? When he returns with the place prepared, he's going to receive them unto himself, right? What do we know that word is? Well, we're in the Hebrew, so it can't be the same as the Greek, which is harpazo. But what does harpazo mean? To snatch away, right? The example in the Greek, I remember hearing this years ago. I think it was a Perry Stone teaching, who asked a Greek guy, what does the word harpazo mean? And it means to take, like if a girl with a ponytail, a little girl's running across the street between cars, and a car is coming full speed down the street, grabbing her by the ponytail and ripping her back. That is harpazo, just snatching out of the way. Okay? Well, watch this. What is he going to do for them? To snatch away. Hello. What? To pluck. It also has a context to escape, but we know the escape was for the pre-trib. Okay? The snatch away, to pluck. That's all the mid-trib great multitude stuff. For a spoil, and none saith restore. Of course, we know there's going to be a restoration that will come, right? Bringing it back, starting point. Okay. And then let's keep going. Verse 23. Who among you will give ear to this? Who will hearken and hear for the time to come? Look at that. The hinder part. The end of days. You see, of course, Isaiah is a prophet, and in the prophets, there were things that were in their day that would take place. There were things relating to Christ in his day. And of course, there's the is to come. And it's something that so many people miss. They think it's just a couple things here and there, because most of the church thinks they've already understood essentially all of prophecy for the most part, when they've missed more than half of it. And they've mingled it all together. You see, what was shall be, what is shall be. Both was is going to be, and is going to be. It's awesome. And so, again, talking about the end of days. Who gave Jacob for a spoil and Israel to the robbers? Did not the Lord, he against whom we have sinned? So, what do we know is coming? Right? The attacks, the devastation, being taken into prison. We saw this even in Luke's discourse, which is part of that 50 days above portion. And then we see the warning of this attack that's coming when they're going to get spoiled and everything else. Why is this happening to the world of church? Because they're asleep. And why is it happening to Judah, to the Jews? Because of their disobedience. They were disobedient. This is what it's all about. Disobedience. And we see this in relation to disobedience. I believe it's Ezekiel 28. Let's have a real quick look. I think it's Ezekiel 28 touches on this for Israel in the world. No, not Ezekiel. Where is it? I'll show you the one. I misplaced the other one in my thoughts, but here's the other one, which is in Leviticus 26. And this relates to the Jews. Okay? Blessings for obedience. And you guys have seen this before. Punishment for disobedience. And we've read this before. we've shown for the 7 times and what's coming and the devastation that's coming from it. This is what's coming to Judah, to Jerusalem, okay, to the Jews. And then there's another one. Man, I was sure it was Ezekiel. I was sure it was 28. Oh, Deuteronomy 28. There we go. Deuteronomy 28 has it as well. Blessings for obedience and and curses for disobedience. And this one has more of a relation to the world, to the house of Israel, the Gentiles grafted in. Okay? And we've done videos on this as well. The darkness that comes, a language that you will not know, see, from a nation far that you do not understand, going into captivity. It's similar to the Judah one in Leviticus 26, yet also very different, because there's a destruction coming on what? Both the Jews and the Gentiles, the church and the Jews. And this is the warning taking place, and this is what the Son of Man is warning about and opening up understanding to in relation to the end of days. And all of these pieces of signs of words that are given to us are showing us the evidence of this being clearly the Son of Man here for 40 days to shine his light on the Gentiles and to prepare them for this judgment that's being brought forth. We see this all throughout it. And then, of course, look at where it ends. Isaiah 42, verse 25. Excuse me. Therefore, he hath poured upon him the fury of his anger and the strength of battle, and he hath set him on fire round about, yet he knew not, and it burned him, yet he laid it not to the heart. What's this round about? We see this round about, don't we? Like compassing in on every side. He's talking about a fire here, but it's also the compassing in on every side. If we go to 2 places to show this, again, it's another piece we've shown many times in relation to the compassing about. We know the prophetic picture of the triumphal entry in Luke, Mark, and Matthew is a picture of the Son of Man coming for 40 days, coming at the end of seals, and coming at the end of trumpets, Luke, Mark, Matthew. That's why the wording is different. And only in Luke do you get this one here, because this is when he's coming as the Son of Man for 40 days, and he's warning. His warning will begin at Jerusalem, saying, if thou had known, even thou, at least in this thy day, the things which belong to thy peace, but now they are hid from thine eyes. For the days shall come upon thee, that thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee, and compass thee round, and keep thee in on every side. What? Compass thee around, round about, compassed in on every side. Where else do we see this? To show this connection directly related to the prophetic in an easy to understand chapter, well, once you understand the differences in them, is of course in Luke chapter 21, verse 20, in Luke's discourse, which is again above. And what does he say? And when you shall see Jerusalem compassed about, encircled, round about, surrounded, then it's time to flee. And this would relate to the end of his 40 days, and then the last 3 days, the spirit of Antichrist, the raven spirit, for the Arabs, as it represents, the Arabs represent that darker hued skin, is going to compass them about from the north, and of course the destruction that's coming through, I still believe it's Syria, whether it's still Assad, I don't know, but probably, right? He's in protection. He's probably building and securing things right now with Russia, but I still believe it's Assad because the connection is to Syria, okay? And of course, Russia is the one that's following in relation to really kicking off World War III. In fact, let's go Jeremiah chapter 4 just to make point on this as a little side note. You see, when we read this, it actually starts to look like Assad being with Russia makes sense. Look at this. Jeremiah 4:7. the lion, right, the first beast from from Daniel chapter 7, which is connected to Assad, right? Assad's name used to be I can't remember, Al-Washi or something like that, which used to mean beast. And then when they went into politics, his father went into politics, they changed the last name from beast to Assad to mean lion. And the first lion is a beast. So I do believe it's Assad, and he's being prepared while being in Russia. And look at what it says. The lion has come up from his thicket. That's when the compassing about after the 40 days starts to take place in Jerusalem, around Jerusalem. And it says, and the destroyer of the Gentiles is on his way. Who's the destroyer of the Gentiles? That's the next beast, which is the bear. So you've got them together here in half of a verse. Like there's a connection between them. Okay? So that was just a little side note that I don't think Assad is out of the picture. So you can see as we've gone through this, take your time, go through it again, listen, pause, go seek these things out, and you could see this exact. Now, when I went into it, I didn't know what I was going to expect, what to expect. I was thinking, yes, this one would relate much more to the 40 days of the Son of Man. Maybe there would be something about pre-trib or something like that, but it made sense that it was only going to be connected to this portion of the above. And sure enough, it was. Okay? When we go to chapter 41, the 41st book of the Bible is the book of Matthew. Now, what we come to find out is that the relation in Isaiah 41 is also connected to the coming of the Son of Man, okay, or to the coming of the Lord, but this time it's when he comes on Mount Zion, when he's coming with paradise, that timing of the end of the 6th year of seals, that start of the 7th year, it's connected to that timing. And so you can understand, as I started to grasp and I was understanding chapter 42 to the coming of the Son of Man and relating to the above, and then I came to this and I saw it was about the coming of the Son of Man and these things taking place, I had assumed that when I went to Matthew's, which is Isaiah 40, I assumed that I should see a connection to when the Lord returns feet down on the Mount of Olives. But I didn't. And I was stumped. I was like, Lord, these things are making sense, like really good sense, and you're going to see that especially right here. And I thought, how could it not be then? What am I missing? And then it dawns on me. What do we know about these things? What do we know? I don't know what to show. Maybe we'll just show it here. What do we know about when the Lord is coming at the end of the 6th year, around that start of the 7th year time frame, in that frame? When he's coming after 6 years, and he's coming with paradise, with heavenly Mount Zion, to receive them unto himself, that where he is, there they may be also. We know it, what we read at the end of the 6th year of seals. But do you remember what happens? The Lord is here all the way to the end of the 13th year of seals, of trumpets, or the end of the 6th year of trumpets. He's here for 7 years until something happens in the 11th year, 10.5 years approximately in, and then war breaks out. And then what happens? Then something happens, and then he returns feet down on the Mount of Olives, like almost immediately after. It says immediately after in Matthew 24. So he's essentially always here from this point forward, except for a brief event that takes place here. So it's interesting because you would say, well, why does there have to be just this relation then to explaining it when we get to the Matthew one that relates to the end? Because these conversations, as you study them out, 42, 41, and 40, even though it's relation to the Lord being here at specific times and what's taking place, the conversation within it is always to the people. It's not just about him coming and what he's going to do, but it's about a conversation to the people. And I say this to prepare you for when we get to chapter 40, because we know something happens in that 7th year, which one is, yes, the great multitude rapture, but it's followed by what? There's the remnant of Israel and the house of Judah, who now recognize their Lord and Savior, most of them, and will go to Jerusalem. Hence the rebuilding of the temple that will come and everything else. You see? So my hint in this for you is the conversation that's being had in relation to people. Judah isn't coming in, the main coming in of the house of Judah doesn't happen at the end of trumpets. It happens towards the end of the 7th year of seals. We've talked about this, right? Because if you recall, when the Lord comes here at the end of 6 years, in that 7th year, he's coming as what? Now remember, these years are off by one because it didn't happen this year, right? So we know why we're adjusting it. This will get adjusted in a future update once I finish some other stuff. The charts will get updated. But what do we know? It doesn't change anything over here, okay? So what do we know about his coming at the 7th year? We know he's coming as Messiah ben Joseph / Ephraim. Okay? He's coming as high priest and king. We know he's going to be seated on the right hand of the Father. We know that, what else do we know? We know he represents Joseph, the ox, right? When he comes in the connection to Taurus from Numbers 24. We know that he has arrows that he shoots out. We know he's going to have nations come against him and then he's going to rule over them. We know these things. So what else do we know about knowing that? We know that the Jews believe that there are unfinished prophecies about the Messiah that the Christians think are fulfilled and won't actually be fulfilled till the end in the missing ones. But the Jews say, no, there's other things that have to be fulfilled. And that's why Christians, most Christians in prophecy, believe that Jews are going to fall for the Antichrist. They're not. They have understood in part, they know what they're looking for, they just don't know that they're going to be destroyed and removed from the land for the 7 years of seals first. Hello. You see, that's the part they haven't understood yet. But what they're looking for is what we know is happening in the 7th year of seals. They're looking for a Messiah ben Joseph who's going to come and destroy the armies that have come against them and destroyed them. And then he's going to be high priest and king, and the rebuilding of the temple will start. Christian prophecy teachers who only understand 7 years think that's the reason why the Jews are going to believe in the Antichrist. Nope, that's not why. It's because they know there is another coming, which is the mid-trib coming of Messiah, as they have understood in their prophecies not yet fulfilled. And when he comes and he fulfills them, what do you think is going to happen? The Lord coming, when all will see him coming, having seen him come with heavenly Mount Zion, established as the rock carved without hand, and becomes a great mountain. And then they're going to have to rebuild the city streets and temple. It's them going back to rebuild it. It's the Lord there. But prophecy teachers everywhere have totally messed that all up. And that's why Christians and Jews are all confused and twisted in together. That's how beautiful this is. That's one of the biggest things that makes this, all of this understanding so powerful. Okay? But we know what he's coming as here. And we know that the Jews will recognize this because this is the Lord, that their Messiah they've been looking for. But does it mean all Jews are just going to suddenly believe? No. Just like at the beginning here, all Christians won't be ready. And then what do they think when the Son of Man comes for 40 days to warn about what's coming, as we just read? Are they all going to come flocking to him, believing he's the Messiah? A lot of them probably will. Some will question it. Others might think he's a prophet. And probably the majority will think he's the Antichrist, because they've all been told it starts with the Antichrist. You see? So what do you think is going to happen with the Jews when the Lord comes like that? Some will recognize it and believe right away. The majority probably, or a good chunk of them. But there will still be some stragglers, and those stragglers will be connected to what comes at the end. Those who will finally corrected and renounced and done their ways and accepted them. And we see that at the end of the sixth trumpet, right at the end of the sixth trumpet, we see that some just turn and throw their hands up and give glory to God, right? That's that remnant group, if you want to say, from Judah and maybe a little bit of others as well. But it's right here that they will recognize the Messiah of the prophecies yet to be fulfilled. So, knowing what we know about the Lord's coming in the seventh year of seals, let's see what we can read in Isaiah 41 connected to the seals, where in the seals it's talking about. And I'm sure some of you who have already started reading it know exactly what it says, right? Know exactly where it is. So let's start in verse 41. Keep silence before me, O islands, and let the people renew their strength. Let them come near, then let them speak. Let us come near together to judgment. See, let us come near together to judgment. Do you remember what happens in Revelation chapter 6? Revelation chapter 6, the end of the sixth seal isn't the destruction yet, but his destruction is coming. We don't know precisely. I mean, is it at the end of the sixth year? Is a little bit in the seventh year? Where is the destruction from the great day of his wrath that has come? You see? So what's happening here? Everybody's crying out, and the kings of the earth and great men and the rich men, the chief captains and the mighty men and every bondman and every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said unto the mountains and rocks, fall on us, and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath has come, and who shall stand? So, who's seeing him come? Who's seeing this mountain of the Lord come? Everybody? Everybody shall have seen him? Hello. But we don't see his wrath yet poured out. We see that it has come. So the question we're trying to still figure out, and again, it's just a finer detail. Is it going to happen right at the end of the sixth year, towards the end of it, or is it going to happen a little bit in part of the seventh year? That remains to be the question. But it's in that time frame after the sixth year. Okay? And this is what we're seeing. So we're seeing they're now coming to him. They're now going to be able to speak. Let us come near together to judgment. So they're not taking part in the judgment of the wrath of the Lamb. Okay? We know that's for the enemies. Well, now watch this. Verse 2 is where it becomes obvious. Just like we saw in a couple of the other verses in chapter 42. Who raised up the righteous man from the east, called him to his foot. Okay? Let's have a look at that. Let's go to Daniel chapter 7. And you'll remember, chapter 7, there's the first beast, that's a lion. Then you got the bear. Then you've got the leopard. Then you got the fourth beast, which takes control over the other three. And you got the beast of Revelation chapter 13. His 10 horns are like the 10 toes of the image of the beast. The 10 horns are, of course, the 10 horns of Revelation 17. And then we read in verse 9 of Daniel 7, I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. a fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. 10,000 times 10,000 ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. Okay? We talked about this number before as well, which I believe this is the pre-trib group. Okay, that's those who went pre-trib, and these are the priestly lines, or a portion of that group, right? And then it says, the judgment was set and the books were open. I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words, which the little horn spake, the horn of the beast. Verse 13. I saw in the night vision, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven. Listen to this. And came to the Ancient of Days. Remember, he was being brought to the foot of him? And they brought him near before him. Who is being brought near to the Ancient of Days? The Son of Man. So the Son of Man is being brought near to the Ancient of Days. And what did we see here? Who raised up the righteous man from the east, called him to his foot, gave the nations before him. Oh, wait, gave the nations before him. Let's see what it says in verse 14. And there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, and all the people, nations, and languages should serve him. Huh. Funny how that worked, right? Being brought to him, being brought to his foot, being given the nations before him, and made him rule over kings. This is Daniel chapter 7. And then what does it say? He gave them as the dust to his sword. Gave them as the dust to his sword. That sounds familiar because we know what that attack is, right? When the Lord is coming with heavenly Mount Zion, it's the mountain carved without hand. That becomes a great mountain. And what does that stone do? It crushes the toes, the 10 toes, which is another typology of the 10 horns, and destroys the beast. And in Revelation 17, what do we see? Okay? You have the 10 horns from the beast that give power unto the beast and their strength. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. He is Lord of lords and King of kings. See, king over the kings of the earth. This is what? This is the end of 6 years of seals. Where exactly, again, does it take place? At the very end of the 6th year, into the 7th year, right? It's in that time frame, but it's in the time frame of having seen him come. You get it? Talk about clear. But it's only clear if you understand how the tribulation plays out in its years. That you understand that he's coming at the end of the 6th year of seals with heavenly Mount Zion. And you understand its connection to Daniel 7. You understand that it's his first battle against the beast and the 10 toes, or the 10 horns of the beast, which is the end of seals and the mountain of the Lord. This is something we just talked about in the last teaching. It was a really good one in relation to the first part of it about the battle of Gog, the war of Gog of Magog. Okay? The Gog of Magog war can happen at the beginning in everybody's 7-year thinking. It can't happen in the middle, and it can't happen at the end of 7 years. In the way they think 7 years is the end of everything. We proved in that study, just by understanding what is connected to what it says about the war of Gog, of the Gog of Magog war in Ezekiel 39, that it's impossible for it to happen in a 7-year understanding. Okay? So these are the types of things. Once you understand these things and the truth of prophecy opens up, this is the type of stuff that just, it explodes everywhere, opens up in Scripture. You just have to spend more time digging, right? Or watch a lot of the teachings and then go start hunting them for yourself. And then it says what? And as a driven stubble to his bow. To his bow. Okay? Does that sound familiar? Of course it sounds familiar. Because when he comes at the end of the 6th year of seals, when he's coming on heavenly Mount Zion, he's coming as what? He's coming as Messiah ben Ephraim / Messiah ben Ephraim, the ox, right? Which is connected to Joseph with the bow and the arrows of Manasseh, which is when he comes as high priest and king. And as you guys know, is Genesis 49 being described to us by the story of Joseph in verse 22, 23, 24. Listen to what it says. Well, full of branches. Let's go to verse 24. But his, here it was, the same word, but his bow, there it is. You see how funny it is? You see how interesting it is that how these words connect in their chapters? In these things that we've already revealed? This is the power of a program like eSword. Noah, we're not sponsored by it or anything like that. Not sponsored by anything, just by support, right? But this program right here with a KJV Plus gets the Strong's Concordance at your fingertips. And it will multiply your understanding when you can go in to dig into the words and their meanings in the Greek and Hebrew and track them down. Okay? So what do we have? And his bow abode in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Jacob. From thence the shepherd, the stone of Israel. Because when he comes as Messiah ben Joseph, or some say Messiah ben Ephraim, same thing, he's coming what? As the stone carved without hand that becomes a great mountain. He's coming with paradise to receive them unto himself, that where he is, there they may be also. But what else is he going to be? He's also going to be the shepherd. Ha ha. Remember, the shepherd is coming here. The Messiah ben Ephraim, Joseph, he is coming here, but he's here fully without leaving for any reason until the end of right near the end of the 13th year, before he then immediately returns, feet down on the Mount of Olives, as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. But right here, he's also the shepherd, because he relates to Joseph. Okay? So what do we know? He's going to destroy his enemies. Well, if we go to Numbers 24, one of those beautiful, beautiful pieces of revelation, I might do a short on this fairly soon, just to discuss this very quickly, to show how did we miss pre, mid, and post in the book of Numbers. Something along those lines, and just briefly share this. This is the pre-trib we know, connected to Reuben in Numbers 24:7, which is the man with the pitcher of water, which is the 11th month, 9th day to the 15th day. Well, he's coming on the 15th, 16th day of the 11th month when he comes to start his 40 days. But we're talking now at the end of the 6th year of seals. And look what he is. He's coming as a unicorn, the ox, the bull. Okay? And he shall what? He shall eat up the nations, his enemies. You see, he's going to destroy the nations, and he's going to rule over them. He shall break their bones and pierce them through with his arrows from the bow. You see, this stuff is everywhere. The connections it gives us are all over the place. Here we go. And that's why I was saying, just seeing this right here is going to make you, I mean, that's the story. You know what I mean? Like, it. How much more do we really need to go into once we see that? But there's still more to the chapter. So let's keep going. Who hath wrought and done it, calling the generations, there's that word again, beginning. You see, this is where you're starting to see it now. You didn't see it in the Luke one in chapter 42, but you're seeing it here in the Mark one. I, the Lord, the first and the last, I am he. Now watch this. Let's go to verse 6. This period of time is now connected to what? It's not explaining and telling us all about seals. It's telling us about him coming at his second mid-trib, when he's coming at the 7th year of seals. That's what this is all about. Well, what do we know happens, guys? What do we know happens during seals? What did we see he said he would do during the 40 days? He would bring division, right? He would bring division, that people were against each other. But the Elijah company, the Elijah type, would be the one to restore, right? So Elijah, if we go to Malachi chapter 4, we know verse 5 and 6 of Malachi 4. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. When is this? Okay. This is to that timing of the end of seals. Now, he's already here during seals. But what does he have to do when the Lord comes? And he shall turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to the fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. Well, remember what Jesus did? He said he was coming to bring division against everybody. Mother and daughter, father and son, but also people against people. Neighbor against neighbor, right? Even the Red Horse Rider, that's what the Red Horse Rider is all about. Nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom, neighbor against neighbor. In fact, I even think 2nd Esdras addresses this when it says, right here, this is the timing of the Red Horse Rider, when the 14 years begins, when that 50 days is over, to make war against one another. City against city, place against place, people against people, kingdom against kingdom. That's the same story. It's people against people, and mother and daughter and father and son. But what do we know happens by the time of the end of Elijah's course? They're brought back together. They're brought back together. Well, look what happens in chapter 41. In verse 6. Okay? Verse 6. It says, they helped everyone his neighbor, and everyone said to his brother, be of good courage. To me, this sounds very much like them having come back together now. You see this restoration taking place. Well, why would this be happening? Look what they saw coming. Remember, they will have seen him come. They will have seen him come. And this having seen come here, the whole world is going to see it. But this one relates to Mark, remember. So if you remember, in relation to dealing this with Mark, we see the division starts in Luke's discourse in the above portion, but it really is detailed for us in Mark's discourse. In verse 12, now the brother shall betray the brother to death, the father the son, parents, and shall cause them to be put to death. But when we get to Matthew's, you don't have this detail. Okay, let's look at Matthew's real quick. In Matthew chapter 24, and that's because this is happening during seals. But when seals comes to an end, this has been dealt with. And we see where it says, and many shall be offended and shall betray one another and hate one another. But this isn't father and son, neighbor and brother. This is just the overall of people themselves. Okay? It's not the same that what we read about what Jesus was doing when he brings division. And what else do we know? I'll just go to Mark's for this and just explain it in Matthew, because we can go into so many places. But remember the transfiguration story. The transfiguration story in Luke is a picture of the coming of the Son of Man for 40 days. In Mark, it's prophetically showing us the picture of him coming after 6 days or after 6 years. And Matthew is after the 6 years of trumpets at his coming feet down on the Mount of Olives. And what did we see in verse 9:11? In 9 verse 11, they asked, where's Elijah? I thought Elijah must come first. And he says, and he told them, Elijah verily does come first and restores all things. Remember the word restore? Remember, and nobody tells them restore? And here the Lord is going to harpazo them, snatch them away. And there's the restorer who is the Elijah or the Elijah company, the one who brings about the restoration. And what does it say? And how it is written of the Son of Man that he must suffer many things, but I say unto you that Elijah is indeed come, and they have done unto him whatsoever they wanted. See that? He was already there till the end of seals, till the end of that 6-year time frame, right in that time. So he's been preparing the way, that Elijah lead, or that represented as that Elijah company, who are going to bring these people, the people, back together, so that when the Lord comes, he will have been the one to prepare the way. But remember, is he only preparing the way for the Mark group? Let's actually go into the Matthew one. Because in Matthew 17 at the Transfiguration, we have a similar conversation, but different. They say Elias must come first. And in Matthew 17:11, it says, and Jesus answered and said unto them, Elijah truly shall come first and restore all things. But I say unto you that Elijah is come already, and they knew him not. See how that works? He's mentioned in both. And this is the end when he comes as lightning feet down on the Mount of Olives, and they didn't even recognize him, the group who was left. But there will be some Jews having recognized him. And you're going to see this as we go forward. But the majority didn't recognize him. Most people probably won't recognize him, or even recognize these remnant workers as the Elijah types. You see? Most won't want to listen to them, guys. These guys are going to be hated. Okay? This remnant group we always teach on, this group of people being prepared, they're going to be executed. Some of them are going to be put to death. Their way of being killed is beheading. They're not going to be very liked, guys, except by those whose spirits get opened and realize the truth of Messiah. And don't forget, they're going to help bring in 1 billion plus people. Even though a few 100 million might be killed, they're going to be responsible in their part for bringing in over 1 billion people, of which the majority will still be alive. Let's go back to 41. So we're seeing this conversation here of them now being kind and friendly to each other, having been brought back together, the way being prepared for this people and for others, and the Lord now being there and these things being set up. But remember this. Who goes in first? You have the 144,000 sealed, and then you have the great multitude that takes place. And then what do you have? Then you have the Jews, right? Then you have the house of Judah, and they're making their way back, but so is a remnant of Israel, okay, of the 10 tribes. They're also making their way back, as we've taught on numerous times, right? So let's see what it says in verse 9. To whom I have taken from the ends of the earth. To whom I have taken from the ends of the earth, and called thee from the chief men thereof, and said unto thee, Thou art my servant, I have chosen thee, and not cast thee away. A group taken from the ends of the earth, and a group being called his servants. Well, if you remember, in Jeremiah chapter 31, we again know what this conversation is. And what do we see? The saving of the people of the remnant of the house of Israel. And then what does it say? Behold, I will bring them from the north country and gather them from the coasts of the earth. And gather them from where? From the coasts of the earth, from the ends of the earth. I will gather them, and with them the blind and the lame, the woman with child, and her that travaileth with child, together a great company. What does this word mean? A great, and the word company in the Hebrew also means multitude. This is the time of the great multitude rapture. So again, very interesting in its timing. We've understood these things, but now we also understand that there's the remnant of Israel, but we also understand more about this remnant of Israel, because this remnant of Israel is part of these guys being brought from the ends of the earth. That's like the great multitude group. But thou art my servant. Who is the servant? Is it potentially the 144,000? Right? That the tribes of Israel? Maybe that's the connection there. Because here's them being taken from the ends of the earth. Directly connected to the conversation we've known and understood for the timing of the great multitude rapture. I'm going right here. What was I? Okay, there we go. I was trying to remember what that was. Verse 10. It says, fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee. Yea, I will help thee. I think this conversation, there's your great multitude, and he's got his servants who he's there with him to help him. Remember, when the Son of Man came in the 42, Luke in Isaiah 42, represented as the Son of Man, it's also a connection to that remnant bride group, that Gentile group remaining who is going to serve during seals, the Smyrna group, right? That Luke 24 representation, the Moses and Elijah companies. Well, who do you think's being represented here? There's a great multitude coming in, but there's also the next group of workers. And we have this conversation of his servant, and that he's going to be with them always and strengthen them and help them. Well, isn't that funny? Because for those who have been paying attention over the years, this is one we have shared on, where am I going? Right here. Mark 16, the same typology of the end of seals and the Lord gathering the 144,000. And what do we see? They weren't prepared, right? He unbraids on them. And then what do we see? Mark 16, verse 20. Actually, let's start in verse 19, because we're going to see this in a moment. So then, after the Lord had spoken unto them, he was received up into heaven and sat on the right hand of God. You see, we know that the reason this is mentioned in Mark at the end of Mark's gospel is because it's prophetically in the is to come, when the Son of Man is going to be seated at the right hand of the Father as high priest and King Melchizedek at the end of seals. This is what's coming. And what does it say next? This is in relation to the 144,000, same timing. And they went forth and preached everywhere, listen to this, the Lord working with them and confirming the word with signs following. So we've got what? The Lord working with this group of servants, which we know are represented at the end of seals as the 144,000. Funny how that works, right? And then it says, I will uphold thee with I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. We just covered that, didn't we? Did you catch that? Who is the right hand of his righteousness that's going to hold them up? Jesus. The Lord being here as high priest and King Melchizedek, the Messiah ben Ephraim / ben Joseph. That's what's happening. It's the same storyline, right? You guys know all this very, very well. Don't worry, I'm going back. I'm going to go back. Okay? And we'll even see more of this in a moment. Unless I skipped it. Okay? We're going to see this again in a little bit, because it's the same time frame-ish. Because remember, this is the end of the sixth, that in that first part of the seventh year, when he's come as Messiah ben Ephraim, when the 144,000 get sealed, when the great multitude then comes in. Well, there's still the rest of the seventh year of seals, for which we know Judah, having been prepared as well and recognizing their Messiah who comes like this, will also make their way to him. Okay? But I want to show you this right here, and we'll probably even touch on it again. The right hand of my righteousness. Well, we just showed that at the end of Mark's gospel, which is that same picture time frame at the end of the 6th year and that 7th year of seals that is coming, that he's going to be with the 144. He's going to be seated on the right hand of the Father, and Jesus is the same thing as seated on the right hand of the Father, being his right hand of righteousness. Where do we know that connection is? Psalms 110. In Psalms 110, a Psalm of David, the Lord Father said unto my Lord Jesus, sit thou at my right hand until I make thine enemies thy footstool. He's going to be what? The rod of strength out of Zion. Rule thou, listen to this. We will touch on this again in a little bit in the next chapter. Rule thou in the midst of thine enemies. You see, when the Lord comes at the end of the 6th year of seals, and he's come on Mount Zion, and then the things of the 7th year happen, and then the rebuilding of the city and streets and temple, and all that stuff takes place. He's still going to be in the midst of his enemies because the whole world isn't going to come to believe him yet. That's pretty crazy, right? To us, it sounds like you must be an idiot. It must be a no-brainer. How would you not believe that he is the Lord at that time? The great multitude goes, right? Probably out of about 1.2 billion, I think, is the great multitude, a little over that. I believe that maybe a few 100 million are killed, but the majority, maybe 700-800 million, are still alive, maybe, at the time of the great multitude, and they're taken up to paradise. And the people that remain are still not believing. Well, what does it say? He's ruling in what? In the midst of his enemies. That's why they're not believing. There's some that just won't convert. There's still going to be a few. There will still be a little bit by the end, but it's because he's ruling in the midst of his enemies, right? Which means what? Which means he still has some work to do. It's not the end of it, even though he's there on Mount Zion. He came with paradise. It's still not going to be the end of his work. He's still in the midst of his enemies, ruling as the high priest. See? The Lord at thy right hand shall strike through kings in the day of his wrath. Hello. Isn't that exactly what we just covered? Proving this to be the end of the 6th year in that 7th year time frame. He is the right hand. And we saw him sitting at the right hand, told that he would sit at the right hand at the end of Mark. It's always correlated. The same story keeps telling itself with greater detail over and over and over again. What else? Let's see. Verse Isaiah 41:11. Behold, all they that were incensed against thee shall be ashamed and confounded. You see? They shall be as nothing, and they shall strive, and they that strive with thee shall perish. Remember the 10 kings coming against those that brought destruction on Jerusalem, right? And on the Jewish people, and went against the house of Israel, and will be chasing and hunting down the Christians, remember? They're going to be destroyed. Everybody's going to be confounded when they see this coming. Well, of course they are. We have to remember what's coming at the end of the 6th, start of the 7th year of seals is like nothing the church has ever been told in their life to prepare for. They might think it's alien, the way the world has been taught what alien is. Of course, the Lord's not alien. That's not what we're saying. But he's coming with paradise, a mountain-looking ship thing. I don't know. It's got to be something. We've talked about this before. It's got to be something represented in the physical coming from the spiritual or from somewhere else that had been hidden, because the whole world is freaking out when they see it coming. Remember, they will all see it coming. Right? I'm going to remember that because we're going to see some of that. Thou shalt seek them and shalt not find them, even them that contended with thee, they that war against thee shall be as nothing. Because he's destroyed them, right? You can see the poor and they that seek water. Poor and the needy seek water, and there was none. The Lord was providing for them in the wilderness, right? Verse 22, part way through. Here it is again. And know the latter end of them. What's the latter end? Actually, let's read the whole verse. Let them bring forth and show us what shall happen. Let them show the former things what they shall be, that we may consider them and know the latter end of them, or declare us things for to come. What's the latter end? The end of days. Funny how so far both chapters have told us about this preparation, this understanding of this timing of the end of days. What else do we know happens during seals? An abomination. An abomination happens. Behold, ye are of nothing, and your work is of naught. An abomination is he that chooseth you. Okay? Again, you can say from the idols and so forth. We don't have the abomination in chapter 42, but we have the mention of abomination in chapter 41, and this is something that they went through as he's describing these things and what took place during the time of seals. Look at this. He's telling them again. So now what you're seeing is a conversation of him saying these things that have taken place, because again, because we know these things in advance, he's got them in his prophets. We know these things in advance because in reading it, it's a warning for the future as well. And what does he say? I have raised up one from the north, and he shall come. Okay? He's going to bring, what does it say? From the rising of the sun shall he come, shall he call upon my name. He shall come upon princes as upon mortar, as the potter treadeth clay. So remember, there's one coming from the north, right? The one connected to Syria, who's going to bring about this destruction and crushing. What else do we know? In the image of the beast, the lion, right? You have the mouth of the lion. The lion is part of the beast. Okay? So it's very interesting as we see this and find its connection. Now look what it says here. In verse 26, who hath declared from the beginning? Remember I said you will find this in 41 and 40, but not in 42. From the beginning, what we may know. Who hath declared from the beginning that we may know? And before time, that we may say, he is righteous. Yea, there is none that showeth. Yea, there is none that declareth. Yea, there is none that heareth your words. What are we seeing here? We're seeing this conversation of, again, not being aware. It having been declared from the beginning, but nobody was listening. Sound familiar? It sure does. Because it's connected to Mark chapter 12. This is what I was talking to you guys about earlier. In Luke, we saw there was no, do you not therefore err, not knowing the scriptures. You see? You don't have that in Luke, but you got it in Mark. And what do we have in this conversation? We have this conversation right here about, did anybody declare it to us? Nobody heard. Nobody was listening. But it was declared from the beginning. So there's your Mark connection and a group having erred. And then it ends with verse 29, behold, they are all vanity. Their works are nothing. Their molten images are wind and confusion. This was the stuff taking place, right? So he's talking about some of these things that had taken place during seals at the time of the abomination. And again, all we have to do is go to Mark's discourse. And in Mark's discourse, not in Luke's, but going Luke, Mark, Matthew in order, Mark's had no abomination of desolation, but Mark's did. And what else do we know? The word for vanity, right? This whole thing from the sons of God, the pre-trib happening, the remnant of the sons of God who will suffer with them, that remnant that would stay as the little lambs. Remember that, as the little lambs, that they would be glorified together, being sacrificed during seals, in the beheadings, to be resurrected and glorified together with them, to serve with him in the end. Right? To sit with him in his throne as he sits in the Father's with his. And what does it say, verse 19 of Romans 8? For the earnest expectation of the creature waits for the manifestation of the sons of God, for the creature was made subject to vanity. And of course, we know that the creature relates to the Mark group, and it's just like the creation of those in light. Funny how all that works, right? Funny how it just so happens to fall in place where it should. And this was the crystal clear part with everything we've known about the Messiah ben Joseph coming. Now, well, I guess we are going to be pretty close to regular time. Hopefully, I don't think this will take too long, but we still got a little bit. But it's fun, right? This is just digging into the scriptures, digging in and drawing closer. So that's what we're doing now. We're going to go into the one related to Matthew, and you're going to see this mystery. I'll call it a mystery. All of this is kind of a mystery. It's never been revealed or understood like this before. But this is what I was telling you about, that when I got to here, as we saw from 42 for Luke, being the Son of Man and the 40 days and the warning and preparing, then we get to Mark, we see it's the end of seals, and he's explained some of the things that happened with the abomination and things that had taken place, but it was really about his coming at the end of 6 years of seals in that 7th year time frame. So when I came to Isaiah 40, I fully expected that because it's to Matthew, I was going to see the revelation of him coming when he returns feet down on the Mount of Olives. But I didn't. And I was scratching my head for a little bit. And then it dawned on me. What we're seeing is, remember, Mark is to the house of Israel and the Gentiles grafted in, and Matthew is to Judah, the house of Judah. See, the house of Israel, the world grafted in, the grafted in world of the Gentiles goes mid-trib, and they're going to paradise. And then you have the remnant of true house of Israel going back to Israel. But then you also have who going in the 7th year of seals. This is what I was just talking about a little while ago, and we've taught on it in a number of teachings, in part here and there, a fair bit recently. This revelation of understanding that there is a remnant of the true house of Israel that will make their way back to Israel, but Judah at this point will also make their way back to Israel. Now, does it mean all of the house of Israel and all of the house of Judah is going to recognize it and go? No. But the bulk of the understanding of them will, because they knew what they were expecting and what they were understanding, what they were looking for. Okay? So, what do we know? We know that when the Lord comes, this is why I was telling you earlier, when the Lord comes here on heavenly Mount Zion, Judah, who has been taught generation after generation that the Messiah who came for the Christians, that can't be him, because we're waiting for our Messiah ben Joseph, our high priest and king, to destroy our compassing about enemies, and then rebuild, be there to set forth to the rebuilding of the temple. This is what we were talking about earlier. Well, this is when he's going to do that. So who do you think is going to also come in later in the 7th year? Who's also going to come in? The house of Judah, of course. So what I was expecting to see down here, because we had this portion, I expected we were going to see this portion. But remember, I was telling you, it's the story of the people. Yes, it's connected to his comings, or 1 and 2, but it's not talking about his third coming in Matthew, or the quote-unquote second coming, which is feet down on the Mount of Olives. Because as I showed you, and as we know, he's here this entire time. From the 7th year of seals to the end of the 13th year of tribulation, or to the end of the 6th year of trumpets. Then he's gone for a short time, and then he returns feet down. So he's here this entire time. He's here for these 7 years. Hello. So, of course, the house of Judah will have already recognized him. They will have recognized him because of the timings of the events that take place here, and because what happens in Zechariah 8. The Lord is there on Mount Zion, and it's time to rebuild the city streets and temple. That's going to be built on the foundation that was laid in the midst of seals, as you guys know. And we know that once it's done, it'll be about 10.5 years in, and then they have to fly away on eagle's wings at the midpoint. Well, who's flying away on eagle's wings? Who's going to fly away when the pit is opened? The end of the generation, brothers and sisters. That's the end of the generation. I remember a dentist brother of ours years ago. I think he's from Carolina, North or South Carolina, I can't remember. But years ago, when we were teaching on these things and we had Psalms 90 and 10 and we were growing in the understanding of these things, he had said, but if it's from 70 to 80 and then a short period of time, so 10 and a half years, that's the end of the generation. And then we fly away, right? Which relates to mid-trumpets, which is to Judah, right? Which means what? Which means Judah had already come in. Judah had come in, and then the rebuilding of the city, streets, and temple, and we know why they came in, because they recognized their Messiah coming in the form that he is now coming as, which the church never understood, and they're going to be there in the rebuilding of the city, streets, and temple for the 3.5 years. So when the cutoff happens and they fly away on eagle's wings, who's flying away? They are. The ones who were with them, the ones who knew it was their Messiah. They're the ones flying away on eagle's wings, or with the wings of an eagle. That's the end of the generation right here. 10.5 years in, which means anybody that comes in after this point, they're just the stragglers, the corners and the gleanings type thing. But this is the bulk. This is the end of the generation right here. Just like Psalms 90 and 10 says. So what we're going to see is that the conversation in chapter 40 now, which relates to Matthew's gospel as the 40th book to the 40th chapter of Isaiah, is also connected to the Lord's coming in the 7th year because of what I just explained to you. The pre-trib is all here. And chapter 42 is here. That represents Luke's portion, okay, and the remnant that are with him. Then you've got the seals, the 144, the great multitude, and the Lord there having come as Messiah ben Joseph, and all that description we see right at the end of the 6th year. And then what happens? Judah comes in too. So what we're going to see is the conversation of Judah connected to this same time. Because when the Lord finishes this in the events that take place after the 13th year or at the end of the 6th year of trumpets, it's not all of Judah that was left sitting there. It's only going to be some that remained and that call out to him. The rest were taken away into the wilderness. And they're taken away not for the last 2.5 years, but as you know, for the last 3.5 years. It's so awesome. So this is the time frame, but in the latter portion of it, when Judah, the house of Judah, then also makes their way. And we've seen this, we've talked about it everywhere, and you're going to see it for yourself. Watch this. Where did I want to start? Okay. So in Isaiah chapter 40, comfort ye my people, saith your God. Speak ye comfortably to Jerusalem, and cry unto her that her warfare is accomplished, that her iniquity is pardoned, for she hath received of the Lord's hand double for her sins. Okay? When there was a destruction at the beginning, right? At the very beginning, Israel's destroyed. And then they laid the foundation, but then what happened? What happened in the midst of seals after the foundation was laid? The beast shows up. The beast shows up. So they're destroyed. They can't keep building. Everything is going to stop. Same like the prophetic of what took place. It ended because those that were coming against them, this time it will be because of the beast. And they're fleeing into the wilderness like Mark's discourse at the time of the abomination. And the Christians are fleeing into places protected in the wilderness. And this destruction is coming. And then they're all gathering to fight against the Lord in Jerusalem. So we're seeing a double for her sins. And it may relate to the very end. But you're going to see that the overall context of this conversation is the end is that latter portion of the 7th year of seals. Watch this. Isaiah 40 verse 3. The voice of him that crieth in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our God. What? What is this doing? What is this doing in chapter 40? What on earth is this doing in chapter 40? If this is to Matthew, and the first idea, the first thought is it's supposed to be at the end, you would not have a preparing of the way in relation to the coming of the Lord, feet down on the Mount of Olives to start the 14th year. Remember, I already showed you. We know when Elijah's time, the John the Baptist, Elijah, when his period of time is finished, which is towards that end late of the 6th year, in that time frame right here. So it can't be down here. And that was the first thing that really said, wait a second, what is going on here? So then I kept reading, and over again with more precision, with more paying attention. Now listen to this. Every valley shall be exalted, and every mountain and hill shall be made low, and the crooked shall be made straight, and the rough places plain. What else do we get? Verse 5. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. When does everybody see the Lord coming? At the end of the 6th year of seals. So is it just the Gentiles, the house of Israel, and the Gentiles grafted in as the world? Is it only them that see? Or is it also the house of Judah that sees? Of course, it's the house of Judah that sees too. The whole world will have seen it. And then they will recognize him, and the reason they will recognize him, but theirs isn't the great multitude rapture, right? Theirs is to remain, because theirs is the promise of the millennial reign, right? They're heaven on earth. So they're going to see him, and they'll recognize him as he brings the destruction, just like we read again in Revelation 17, when he kills the beast and the 10 horns, which is the same picture as Daniel chapter 2, when he destroys the 10 toes and the beast, when he's that rock that becomes a great mountain. You see, the stone that becomes a great mountain. What else do we see? Oh, what about this part? If we back up a couple verses, we have verse 3, the one preparing the way in the wilderness, right? Making the valleys, the hills brought low. Let's go look at this. If we go to Luke chapter 3, look at what we read. We have the story of John the Baptist. Isn't that funny? We have John the Baptist in chapter 3 of Luke, which is part of In Order, which we know is directly connected to the timing of the coming of the Lord at the end of seals. And what does it say? Every valley shall be filled, every mountain and hill shall be brought low, and the crooked shall be made straight, and the rough ways shall be made smooth. And all flesh shall see the salvation of God. Then said he to the multitude that came to be baptized, listen to this, that came to be baptized of him, listen to this. O generation of vipers, who hath warned you to flee from the wrath to come? Who do you think this represents? He's not talking to the Gentiles of the house of Israel. He's talking to the Jews and the priests, right? The Pharisees, Sadducees. He's talking to the Jews. Remember, the Jews were the ones always coming against the Christians. We see in John chapter 20, when it says that they shut the door, right? Let's go look at that real quick. In John chapter 20, what were they worried about? They were worried about the Jews. Right here, in verse 19. Then the same day at evening, remember, this is when he comes back, right? Right after the pre-trib, and the same day he comes back, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut, where the disciples were assembled for fear of the Jews. Ta-da. So for this fear of the Jews. So when we see this connection in chapter 40, and we go read about it in Luke in order, John the one preparing the way, well, if the great multitude that goes pre-trib is being harpazoed, is being snatched out of the way, then what's the path being made straight? Not, I don't mean the spiritual path that these guys led people on, but also making the way for them to go back to Jerusalem, to go back to where the Lord is, having seen him come, which is a picture of his birthday. You see, like a picture of his birthday. So this is what we're seeing. We're seeing, look at the conversation that comes next. Bring forth therefore fruits worthy of repentance. What's this also conversation of? The 144,000. When do the 144,000 go out? They're going to go out during trumpets. We see them in Revelation 14, standing on Mount Zion with the Lamb. Hello. Pretty wild, right? So these guys, Judah is also connected to the end of seals, with John the Baptist, the Elijah company, having prepared the way. Because they will also, with all flesh, see the Lord having been revealed, when all flesh will see him together. Which is, just so happens, is what we know seen at the end of the 6th year of seals. At the end of the 6th year of seals. Which is directly in our Luke in order, chapter 3 of Luke. Which isn't about just the house of Israel and the Gentiles grafted in, but is a conversation to also the house of Judah and the 144,000. All of this, at first really had me caught off guard. But then it dawned on me. We've been teaching this everywhere. We've been showing it everywhere, guys. Remember that? We've showed it in so many places, right? Remember this in Zechariah 8? What's Zechariah 8? The Lord is there on Mount Zion, right? The remnant of his people, the remnant of the house of Israel has come in, but so is Judah. He's bringing them in. They're going to dwell in the midst. He says, let their hands be strong, because they're about to rebuild the temple, which, and also the city and streets, right, and the wall, and rebuild the temple on the foundation that was laid during seals. And what does he tell them? For before these days there was no man for hire, nor hire for beast, neither was there any peace. Remember, he removed peace at the beginning. To him that went out or came in, because of what? Remember the affliction in chapter 1? For I set everyone against his neighbor. Remember that? It's not till the end that they all come back to each other and they all start fighting against each other. The Lord destroys all the enemies that were round about, and they're brought back in. Well, is it only the house of Israel making their way back? No, this is something that we've been teaching about for a long time. And I shouldn't say for a long time, but over the last few months, this incredible revelation that there's the house, the Gentiles that are the ones grafted into the house of Israel. That branch of the grafted in Gentiles is taken to paradise in the mid-trib, and the remnant of the true house of Israel is going back to Jerusalem, making their way back to the mountain to rebuild the city streets and temple, and so is the house of Judah. So is the house of Judah. This was a big deal recently when we realized this division between the house of Israel and the Gentiles, that branch is broken off, and now true house of Israel, the remnant of them, the few that would be left, and then the few of Judah that remained as well. But this is telling us at the start of trumpets, the house of Judah is already there. And so is the house of Israel. That was a big deal. And when that dawned on me, excuse me, this now made absolute sense. That it wasn't talking to us as I thought it would, being his return feet down on the Mount of Olives in the third coming of the end of days, but it was related to this because it's about the people that are being prepared. It's about the people coming in at his coming, when he brings them in, when they are brought in, when they are prepared to make their way to him. So that when we get to chapter 8 of Zechariah and the beginning of trumpets, they're now there, ready to start rebuilding the city streets and temple. That's why we're seeing the story of Matthew and Judah connected to chapter 40 as Matthew, but also still in that seventh year of seals, right? From that end of the sixth to the seventh year of seals. Now watch this. Isaiah 40 verse 9. O Zion, that bringest good tidings, get thee up into the high mountain. Huh. You guys know where I'm going with all this, right? Chapters to years, Psalms 24. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. What's the fullness thereof? It's the great multitude, right? The world, the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. And then it says, who shall ascend into the hill of the Lord, or who shall stand in his holy place? He that has clean hands and a pure heart. We've talked about this before. Ascending the hill of the Lord. And this ascending of the hill of the Lord, we know because Mount Zion has come. He came with the place he went to prepare. And when he returns, he's no longer jealous as we saw he was earlier, because now he is returned unto Zion. And what is it going to be with? The mountain of the Lord of hosts, the holy mountain, which is, of course, when they're now there, bringing them from the east country and from the west, and the rebuilding starts. What were the Jews waiting for? What have the Jews been taught who listen to the rabbis that teach about prophecy, which is kind of like the church? Not very many pay attention to prophecy or understand it. What are they looking for? They're looking for him coming as Messiah ben Joseph, destroying the compassing armies and leading in the midst of his enemies, and then overseeing the rebuilding of the temple, this which they don't realize will be the city and the streets because they've been destroyed earlier, but the rebuilding of the city streets and temple. That's why they're going to recognize him. He's fulfilling, at that point, the things they knew he was going to fulfill. And they will make their way into the high mountain of the Lord. Let's see the rest of it. O Jerusalem, that bringest good tidings, lift up thy voice with strength, lift it up, be not afraid. Say unto the cities of Judah, behold your God. Excuse me. Verse 10. Behold, the Lord God will come with strong hand. Listen to this. I said we would talk about it again. And his arm shall rule for him. What arm is that? You guessed it. What arm is it? It is the right hand of the Lord. It is the right arm of the Lord. And that is again going to Psalms 110. When he will be seated on the right hand of the Lord, and he will be what? Messiah ben Joseph. He will be high priest and king. And when he comes, you remember what it said. Let's go to Psalms 110. Because again, this is directly connected. We go to Psalms 110, seeing that he's going to be the right hand or the right arm, the right side, the right arm of the Lord, who is Messiah, who is Messiah ben Joseph, who is the high priest and king Melchizedek, who is at the right hand. Okay? What does it say? Remember what it said? Rule thou in the midst of thine enemies. So even though he had come at the end of seals on Mount Zion, and a great multitude happens, and all of these things of seals have happened to the end of it, and they see this coming, and they're freaking out when they see this mountain-looking thing coming of paradise. They're freaking, and the mountain is the Lord there, and then they know that they have to make their way to the mountain of the Lord, who aren't the Gentiles that have been harpazoed to paradise, so that these guys can then rebuild the city streets and temple. It says at the same time that Jesus is going to rule in the midst of his enemies. When does he rule in the midst of his enemies? At the end of the 7th year of seals, in the time of trumpets. So now when trumpets begins, he's going to be ruling in the midst of his enemies. Okay? Those that are his will have been gathered, but then everybody else that hasn't come to him, that didn't come to Christ, that were worshiping the beast, he's still ruling in the midst of his enemies. Not everybody that took the mark is killed yet. He's ruling in the midst of his enemies. Well, we've known that for a while. But look at what we get next in Isaiah 40. Okay? Verse 10, partway through, and his arm shall rule for him. Behold, his reward is with him. Dun, da, da, da. Who gets a reward, guys? Who has a reward for wages, for hire? You guessed it. We talked about it not too long ago. Who's getting there? Who has a reward coming at the end of seals? Those who work during seals. Remember what I said? There's the lambs, the sheep, and the sheep in John 21. It's the 3 groups. The lambs, there's a portion that remained to serve him during seals that were there with him for 40 days. And the rest of the lambs were taken to the third heaven. And then it was the sheep and the sheep. Right? The sheep for the house of Israel and the Gentiles grafted in. And the sheep of Judah, which he told us in John, other sheep I have and that I must bring with me. Those are the fathers for Judah. So who's receiving wages here? Who's receiving a reward? The same ones we talked about not too long ago and showed about their reward and their crowns, remember? When does this crown come for this group that worked during seals, having put their necks on the line and everything else? At the end of seals. He is the reward, right? Behold, his reward is with him. He is the reward, but there's reward as well. Okay? His reward is with him. Now remember what we just said about Psalms 110? Look at this. And his work be for him. How could his work still be before him? You see? In a 7-year context, there's no way anybody can explain this. No way anybody can explain this prophetically in understanding that here he is ruling as the right arm of the Father, and his work is before him, because when he's seated at the right hand of the Father, Psalms 110, he's ruling still in the midst of his enemies. He still has his work before him, which is the time of trumpets. And watch what happens now. Remember I was telling you earlier to remember the lambs, and I just mentioned it again? Verse 11, he shall feed his flock like a shepherd. When does he come like a shepherd, brothers and sisters? When does he come as the shepherd? We know he is the shepherd, right? The one who comes in through the gate and not some other way, like John 1:10 says. We know Jesus is the shepherd, but when he comes at the end of seals, we know he's coming as Joseph, as the Messiah ben Joseph, when he comes as a stone with his bow and as the shepherd. I love it, man. It's so good. It's so easy to get excited understanding and pulling these revelations out and these things that we hadn't understood before. It's so awesome. He shall feed his flock like a shepherd. Okay? So again, he'll feed his flock like a shepherd. And then what do we see? He shall gather the lambs in his arm and carry them in his bosom, and shall gently lead those that are with young. Who are his lambs? Well, it's what we were just talking about, right? I have to show it to you because we know who the lambs represent. Feed my lambs, feed my sheep, feed my sheep. Everybody going pre-trib is a lamb, right? They are the little lambs. Jesus is the lamb, right? Jesus is the shepherd. We're going to be little shepherds. Jesus is the light. We are going out with the light during the time of seals, and those with the light now during this time as well, in the is. So who are the lambs? They're that remnant bride portion, that Gentile bride group, the first worker group that were remaining to serve him. And so what do we understand being the end of that 6th year, 7th year time frame of him coming as the shepherd? He's got his reward with him. His work is before him. But what is he going to do? Their work is over. You see? The work of the lambs who were there working during seals, who were with him for 40 days, who understood the pre-trib was going to happen in moments and were prepared and waiting for him to return after the wedding to have that meal with him, as we talk about in Luke 24, which is that Smyrna group, the two on the road to Emmaus represented. They're the lambs. And he's going to carry them in his bosom. Carry the lambs with his arm and carry them in his bosom. How awesome, right? So awesome. All nations before him are as nothing, and they are counted to him less than nothing and vanity. Who is like God? Who can compare? Oh, here we go. Watch this now. Verse 21. Have you not known? Have you not heard? Hath it not been told to you from the beginning? So it's not because this is the end of trumpet judgments at his return, but it's related. This is where I'm telling you, or where I was telling you, it's related to people groups. It's the Mark group that goes in first at the end of seal, at the end in that 7th year of seals, followed by the Matthew group, which is the house of Judah, that goes in the later part of the 7th year of seals as well, because they've recognized them. But they're still the Mark group and they're still the Matthew group. And what do we know about what we showed in the Mark group? That they've erred. And when we come to the Matthew group, we see this same thing. This story of the woman with the 7 husbands and all of that. Nothing against them in Luke, but we saw they did err in Mark. And what do we see in Matthew? They did err not knowing the scriptures as well. We're seeing the same thing in Matthew, and look at what we're seeing. We're seeing the similar type of context of conversation that we just saw in the chapter that related to Mark. You see how crazy this is? You see how wild that we can have a book laid out with 66 chapters, and that there are 66 books, and we can go into those relating to Luke, Mark, Matthew, understanding it in the prophetic, and show the wordings that connect to each one in the prophetic of their day in relation to the end of days, while others can go to the same books and pull out little pieces in a similar fashion, but in the is to just the words described in the books. It's not the breathed word of God. It's not the inspired word of God. The chapters, the verses, the way the books, the chapters are even laid out with words before and after and what's being said, we have proven hundreds of times, and you can add these to the list, that it is undoubtedly, again, proven out. Chapters are on purpose, and so are verses. Let's keep going. Watch this. Lift up your eyes. Just a lot of the things about his creation, what he has done. Creator, lift up power and faith. Now, you ready for this? This is going to bring us to a key piece of what we were just talking about. This Revelation 12, Psalms 90 and 10. Okay? Remember this I was saying, that dentist that I brought up earlier from several years ago, he had mentioned, and it caught my attention because it says the days of our years, okay, are 70 to 80 if we can endure it, right? Which is labor and sorrow, which means tribulation, pain, and suffering. It's the picture of the 10 years of the 7 of seals, 3 of trumpets, and then for it is soon cut off. A short period of time, about half a year, okay? Which gives a total of about 10 and a half years, which means in the 11th year. That about 6 months is in the 11th year, of course. And so what do you have? This is the length of a generation, or the days of our years. So why do we have 14 years? Well, because it says, and we fly away. So when the days of their years are over, 10 and about half years, then their generation, their days of their years are over and they fly away. So what is this saying? At 10 and a half years, their years are up. Their years are up and they fly away. They're going to be taken somewhere. Wasn't that exactly what we know? What were we just saying? We've been talking about how this representing Judah as the math portion, as the Matthew portion, as the house of Judah, they now come in late in the 7th year. They're there during trumpets having come in, having recognized who their Lord is. They're there in the rebuilding and their hands being strong to build the temple. And then what's going to happen? After the 10 and a half years, when the final generation of 70 and then to 80 and soon is over, they're then going to fly away on the wings of an eagle, or with the wings of an eagle, and they're going to be gone for 3.5 years. A half, 1, 2, 3, to the end of 14 years. Well, why is that important? Because we recognize now that this, even though it's to Matthew, isn't talking about the end of trumpets, but it's a continuation to what's been happening at the end of 6 years in that 7th year of seals before they're brought back into the land to rebuild. They have 3.5 years left in which to rebuild before their generation is over. Remember the 70, the year count is the Jerusalem side, is the house of Judah side, is the one connected to the years count for Jerusalem with Zechariah. Well, watch this. Watch what happens. Where do I want to go to? Let's go to verse 30 as we bring this to an end. Even the youths. Oh no, let's start in verse 29. Isaiah 40, verse 29. He giveth power to the faint, and to them that have no might he increases strength. Even the youths shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fail. Why would they fail? If the Lord was here and they came in and they're here with the Lord for the 3.5 years of trumpets, why would they fail? Why would they fail? Or do you think he's telling them about something else coming? Because what happens after the 3.5 years? What happens in that final, when that 3.5 years is up at mid-trumpets? What happens in this final 2.5 years before something happens with the Lord here at the end of 13 and then he returns feet down? What happens at that 10.5 year mark when their generation is now over? Well, they fly away on eagle's wings, don't they? Let's go to Revelation chapter 12. In Revelation chapter 12, the reason why they're fainting and the Lord's going to give them the power and the strength is because in Revelation 12:14, what does it say? This is the one directly connected to Psalms 90 and 10. when they're going to fly away on eagle's wings, right? And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time. This is the 3.5 years of her flying away on the wings of an eagle, or wings of an eagle. Why did she fly away? Because Satan was cast down. Satan was cast down at the 10.5-year mark, and the strength and the courage and all of this that's going to be needed to endure what's coming, the Lord is going to give them the strength and the power and the courage to endure what's coming, to make their way. What are they flying away on? In the exact place that we've been teaching for years is when they fly away on eagle's wings, and we know who it is because it was those who were with them for the first half of trumpets in the land, that remained with them, that were loyal, that stayed with them, that were rebuilding the city and the streets and the temple, while the Lord was there on Mount Zion, overseeing and working with the 144,000 sent out. Until what? The pit is opened, and the beast comes back from the pit. Satan has been cast down, and his angels with him that have lost the battle with Michael. And they're going to be given 2.5 years to bring full destruction and chaos on everyone that remains. While what? While the other ones have flown away on eagle's wings. Which is exactly that 10.5-year marker to when they would fly away. And it means what? Their generation is over. And they've been taken away to a place protected, having flown off in eagle's wings. And guess what he warns them about? Verse 31, the end of Isaiah 40. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. Boom. End of story. Right here. Right here. And they fly away on those eagles' wings. Right here in the midst of the 11th year till the end of the 14th year. The reason we didn't have the story till the end is because they're taken at the midpoint of trumpets, having been there with them, and they go on the strength of those eagles' wings until the end of the 14 years. It's awesome. It's awesome. So do you think they're looking for him? Do you think there's a need to look for him returning feet down on the Mount of Olives as lightning from one end to the other? Nope. Because they won't be there to deal with what he's bringing against all of the enemies now. They're still gone until the end of the 14th year. They won't return, and I want you to pay attention to this final piece, because this is now connected to what we're going to talk about, God willing, in the next one with the 2 calendar chart that we've gone into again. Okay? They're gone till the end of the 14th year, right? They're gone for 3.5 years, which we would say is the end of the 14th and the beginning of the Jubilee. But the Jubilee does not begin with them returning to start observing the Jubilee. Did you know that? They don't come back from the 14th year and start at the beginning of the 15th year to observe the Jubilee in the land. Did you know that? Check this out. I came to realize the other day that Ezekiel is a Nisan to Nisan count. And I'm going to prove it to you briefly, but we'll go into detail in part of the next teaching. You ever recognize or ever notice that Ezekiel chapter 47 is in the 14th year? But did you ever notice what happens in Ezekiel chapter 47? Watch this. It's the flowing of the water from the temple, from the throne of God in the temple, renewing all of the earth. We've taught on it many times, right? Well, why would that be the chapter 47 in the 14th year? Because it can't happen in the 14th year. You see what I'm saying? How could it happen in the 14th year when the Lord, for that 1 year in the 10 days, is bringing about destruction upon all the enemies? And these guys that were gone for 3.5 years can't come back until sometime in the Jubilee year. Well, they're not coming back exactly at the beginning of the Jubilee, according to Scripture. They would be coming back in the year, which means in the midst of it. Watch what happens with Ezekiel when you understand Ezekiel is a Nisan to Nisan year. Okay? This is our Nisan to Nisan year, and this is our sowing and reaping years. We know there's a combination, and we'll go into it and we'll break it all down further in the next teaching. But watch what happens. Here's the 14th year coming to an end in a numbers side, in a year side. But on the sowing and reaping side, we now know the sowing will come first, right? We'll talk about it in the next teaching. But the sowing has to begin first before this pre-trib reaping that we know then happens 4 months earlier than when it would begin. Okay? But now watch what happens. Here's the end of your 14th year, or your 49, for those that don't remember, which is the 7777777, but not in a Nisan count, but the Tishri to Tishri, right? Watch what happens. Do you guys know that, of course, there's no sowing and reaping in the 7th year, but there is also no sowing and reaping in the Jubilee year? Okay? In Leviticus 25:12, it says the. Remember the difference between the and when it says in? It's so powerful that we have this revelation. The Jubilee, you shall eat the increase thereof out of the field, because you cannot sow it and you cannot reap it. So you couldn't sow and reap, you couldn't sow and reap. We know there's the 3-year blessing, right? Well, watch what happens. So they can't sow and reap in the 7th, and they can't sow and reap in the Jubilee, which is also seen as the 8th, right? But do you know what else it tells us? Leviticus 25:13. I'm truly bringing this to an end, all right? Leviticus 25:13. Look what it says. In the year of the Jubilee, you shall return every man unto his possession. Did you catch that? They're not returning to their possessions at the Jubilee, the beginning of it. They're returning every man in to his possession in the Jubilee year. Where is in the Jubilee year? It's right here, in the midst of it. Remember, in means in the midst of a year, and you have to determine which one it is based on what it tells us. And the means the beginning of the year, and you have to understand whether it's the Nisan year or whether you're talking about the sowing and reaping and so forth. The is the beginning, and when it says in, it's in the midst of a year. Okay? We've talked about this in a previous one, and I'll fully explain it to you in an upcoming one. So that means they're coming back at Nisan in the midst of the Jubilee year, because the Jubilee year begins at Tishri in the fall, which means they're going to be coming back in Nisan. And guess when they're coming back? What will that equal? The end of the 14th year on the Nisan to Nisan side. So, do you follow what I'm showing you? Did you catch that? If we look at this not as the 7s of Tishri to Tishri, but we look at it as the Nisan to Nisan, because it's both. There's a Nisan to Nisan count in this, and you can count it in a Tishri to Tishri, because it works together, but you got to know which one is talking to which. Ezekiel is doing a Nisan to Nisan count. You know how we know? Remember what I was saying at the beginning? Sometimes in the chapters to years, sometimes the events are in the beginning of the year, sometimes they're in the middle, sometimes they're towards the end of the year, sometimes the chapter is describing the whole year. Well, check this out. Chapter 47 says that the Lord is renewing the earth with the water flowing out from the throne room, which means the judgment is over. For that to be the case, Ezekiel has to be talking about a Nisan to Nisan, because in a Nisan to Nisan, the 14 years are over in the middle of the Jubilee year in a Tishri to Tishri, which means for that Ezekiel 47 to be in the 14th year, in a Nisan to Nisan count, look at this, it would be the beginning of the Jubilee. So the second half of the 14th year is when Ezekiel 47 plays out, which is the first half in a sowing and reaping side, which is the first half of the Jubilee, which is when the Lord is doing what? He's already destroyed all the enemies. And what is he doing now in the first half of the Jubilee? He's restoring. He is restoring, as we saw in Ezekiel 47, he is renewing the earth with the water flowing out from the temple, restoring and renewing the earth. Well, guess what? We see then that Ezekiel 48 is connected to the 15th year. But remember, we know it's a Nisan to Nisan year, which means right here, this is the 15th year in a Nisan to Nisan year. And what does Ezekiel 48 tell us? Now these are the names of the tribes, and they're all being given their portion of land, brought back to their borders, and all receiving their portion. But you remember, it didn't say it was happening in the first half of Jubilee from the beginning of it. It said they would receive their return, every man, in the Jubilee, which would mean in the midst of it, which would be what? At the end of the 14 on a Nisan to Nisan, at the beginning of the 15th year. And that is exactly what it shows us right here in Ezekiel 47 and 48, proving that Ezekiel is a Nisan to Nisan year, lining up with Scripture, showing us that the Lord, in the first half of the Jubilee, approximately the first half, is restoring the earth with the water flowing from the temple. And then, when the 14th Nisan to Nisan year is done, those that were taken away, fled on the wings of an eagle, that were gone and taken for 3.5 years, will then return to observe the Jubilee, but not at the beginning of the Jubilee. In the midst of it, when they will come back from their 3.5 years, and everyone receive their portion of land to begin what would be the 15th year, continuing in the year counts, and would be in the midst of the Jubilee. It's so wild. Brothers and sisters, it's awesome. It's so incredible. This has, and for anybody that's new, this has nothing to do with me. This is the Spirit of the Lord that has opened to us and revealed to us what began with the understanding of who the Gospels are speaking to, specifically for the prophecy and the prophetic of the end of days. We have understood it in order, and the Lord continues to reveal His Son, the Word, to us by the Spirit, guiding us and leading us in the revelation of the open books that were sealed until the time of the end. It is awesome. It's always, almost every teaching has something new or a ton of new stuff. This was one of those that was filled with new open books revealing and confirming and giving us greater understanding of prophecy. God is good all the time. Brothers and sisters, I love you. I appreciate you always. I thank you for your prayers, for the support, for joining us in the forum and sharing, lifting up each other, your support for our brothers and sisters in Uganda and everything that's going on. I am forever grateful, and I appreciate you all and your families. We'll talk to you soon. God bless you. Love you. Bye for now.